It was a cold, dreary evening when I returned home from campus. The wind howled, sending shivers down my spine as I approached the gates of our family mansion. The grandeur of the estate, once comforting, now seemed ominous in the fading light. Little did I know that night would forever change my life. As I stepped inside, the house was silent, its vastness engulfing me. The creaking floors echoed with each step I took, amplifying my unease. The shadows danced on the walls, playing tricks on my mind, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. I ascended the staircase, the air thick with a sense of foreboding. The dim light from the hallway barely reached the upper floor, casting long, eerie shadows. I made my way towards my room, clutching my books tightly, trying to focus on anything but the rising fear inside me. Just as I reached my bedroom door, I heard muffled voices from downstairs. It was my stepfather Mark and my mother engaged in a heated argument. Their strained relationship had never been a secret, but the tension tonight felt different. Something felt terribly wrong. Curiosity mingled with worry, and I tiptoed closer to the staircase to eavesdrop. The words became clearer as I strained my ears, and what I heard sent a chill down my spine. My stepfather's angry voice resonated through the walls, laced with a sickening threat. Panic seized me as I realized that my mother was in danger. My heart raced, and without a moment's hesitation, I sprinted down the staircase, adrenaline surging through my veins. I burst into the living room, the scene before me etching itself into my memory forever. There stood Mark, his face twisted in rage, towering over my mother, who trembled in fear. In that instant, instinct kicked in, and without thinking, I lunged at him. I grabbed a heavy ornament from the nearby mantel and swung it towards him, connecting with a sickening thud. He stumbled backward, clutching his head, blood trickling down his face. The room fell into a momentary silence, punctuated only by my racing heartbeat. Mark's eyes burned with a sinister fury as he regained his balance. His expression turned menacing, and I knew I had to protect myself and my mother at any cost. He charged towards me, and a fierce struggle ensued. Our bodies collided, knocking over furniture, shattering glass, and sending a cacophony of chaos throughout the room. Fear gripped me, but adrenaline fueled my every move. In the midst of the struggle, my mother screamed, pleading for it to stop. It was a desperate cry for help that reverberated through the mansion, shattering the silence of the night. The sound seemed to snap something inside Mark, and his grip loosened for a split second. In that fleeting moment, I seized the opportunity and managed to escape his clutches. Panic-stricken, I dashed towards the kitchen, my mind racing to find a weapon. My trembling hands reached for a knife, its cold metal a comfort and a curse. As I returned to the living room, my heart pounding in my chest, Mark lunged at me once more. It was a battle of survival, the scent of blood mingling with the fear in the air. In a desperate act of self-defense, I raised the knife, my hand trembling uncontrollably. The blade connected with Mark's body, and a gut-wrenching scream filled the room. The world seemed to freeze as his eyes widened with shock and pain. Time stood still as I stared at the lifeless figure before me. The weight of what I had done crashed upon me like a tidal wave, filling me with a mix of relief and horror. The reality of the situation settled in, and I knew that everything had changed in that fateful moment. Trembling, I dropped the knife to the floor, its metallic clang echoing through the room. The silence that followed was deafening, broken only by my gasps for air and the sound of my mother's tears as she huddled in the corner. The minutes turned into hours as we awaited the arrival of the police. Fear and uncertainty gnawed at my insides, making it hard to breathe. I replayed the events over and over in my mind, questioning every action, every decision. When the authorities finally arrived, their presence brought a strange mix of relief and anxiety. They entered the mansion cautiously, their footsteps echoing through the halls. As they reached the living room, their expressions shifted from suspicion to shock at the scene before them. I was questioned for hours, recounting the events of that terrifying night. The detective's eyes searched for any sign of deceit as I struggled to find the right words, fearing that my own voice could be my undoing. The weight of guilt threatened to suffocate me as I painted a vivid picture of the struggle, the fear, and the desperate need for self-preservation. Days turned into weeks, and the investigation continued. Every moment was spent in a state of limbo, waiting for the final verdict that would determine the course of my life. Doubt and fear clouded my thoughts, leaving me sleepless and haunted by the memory of that night. Finally, the day of the trial arrived, and the courtroom overflowed with tension. The prosecutor painted me as a cold-blooded killer, while my defense fought tooth and nail to prove that I had acted in self-defense, protecting my mother from an abusive and dangerous man. As the evidence was presented, the truth began to unravel, piece by piece. Witnesses testified to the volatile nature of Mark's relationship with my mother, recounting instances of violence and manipulation. The scars on my mother's body spoke volumes, telling a story of abuse that had been hidden behind the mansion's opulent facade. In the end, the jury delivered their verdict. The room held its breath as the words were spoken, sealing my fate. Not guilty. The weight that had burdened me for months lifted, and tears streamed down my face, a mix of relief and sorrow. But as I stepped outside the courtroom, the world looked different. The scars of that night, both visible and invisible, would forever mark my soul. The shadows within the mansion seemed to linger, whispering reminders of the horror that unfolded within its walls. The girl who had returned home from campus that night was forever changed. The experience had left an indelible mark on her, a reminder of the fragility of life, the darkness that can lurk behind closed doors. Dear listeners, never take the safety of your own home for granted. The monsters that haunt our nightmares can sometimes be all too real, and in the face of unimaginable circumstances, the line between right and wrong can blur, forcing us to confront the darkness within ourselves.